So recently I've been thinking, should Spider-Man still maintain his spot on the big three? And as many of us know, the big three in comics at the very least is Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman. Their popularity just kind of lifted them to this upper echelon of comic book characters, and they just have the most comic titles out at any given time, right? They usually have 2, 3, 4 about, I guess, different points in their lives, or maybe all concurrently going on at the same time, but about different aspects of the superhero's journey and just their everyday life. On top of all of that, there is the fact that their supportive cast and their villains have been worked on and developed so much to the point that these characters can carry their own spin-off titles in and of themselves, as we know with Batman and the Bat Family, Superman and the Super Family, and Spider-Man and the Spider Family, I guess. I don't know what term you would use for them, but of course there's the clones, Ben Reilly and Kane Parker, there's Miles Morales. Heck, there's even Venom. One of the funniest things that I've seen on Twitter was this person being confused at that the Venom fanbase and the Spider-Man fanbase are actually two distinctive things for some reason. And Venom fans kind of developed this early Eddie Brock mentality towards Spider-Man, and they actively hate his character for some reason. I don't know if they hate him because they always get compared to Spider-Man, but it's like, that guy is still your father, bro. Spider-Man's the only reason why you still exist. It's why I get mad at like Nightwing fans, which I'm a big Nightwing glazer myself, but like when Nightwing fans like call Batman trash, I'm like, don't forget who spawned you, little bro. You're not, you wouldn't have existed without your template. But either way, great for Venom fans. They have their own mythology, they have their own world building going on, and that's thanks to Donny Cates and a bunch of other fantastic writers that really saw the potential in Venom and just ran for it. So congrats to you guys, but you just chill a bit. Just chill a little bit. Bring it down a tiny bit, okay? Anyways, the reason why I've been thinking about this was because this Wednesday, Marvel dropped The Amazing Spider-Man #1, a relaunch of the Amazing Spider-Man title under the penmanship of Joe Kelly. Now, Joe Kelly is one of my favorite writers. He's done some of my favorite solo work at the Big Two, some of my favorite team books at the Big Two, but I've never really been a person who read into a lot of Joe Kelly's Spider-Man work, and apparently this new #1 has a lot of, let's just say, mixed receptions, to say the least, because there's two different angles. There's one angle where it's like, people think that this is the true return to form that every Spider-Man fan dreamed of happening in the past, like 10, 15 years, because you have to remember, Spider-Man has been on a losing streak ever since One More Day just messed up his entire mythology. There's also a lot of people on the other side who say just being a fresh start that brings these characters back to the form that they originally should have been isn't really enough, especially when you consider that Amazing Spider-Man #1 will not only sell a lot of copies, will not only just be someone's first Marvel comic, that's very much possible, but also a lot of people are right now just in the Ultimate Universe like headspace, right? They only consume Marvel through the Ultimate Universe, and the Amazing Spider-Man #1 might be the jumping on point for those readers to kind of interact with the main Marvel Universe in comic format, and it just being solid isn't really enough. A lot of people think that if you're going to be a #1, you have to basically go big or go home, right? You have one chance to get all of these people together, and I don't really blame Joe Kelly for going for a more safe approach, mainly because if you go back, right, to the previous volume of Spider-Man, which I will detest with my very fiber of being. I haven't even read the last 20, maybe even 30 issues, but Zeb Wells' Spider-Man volume was atrocious garbage that should not have been printed on a piece of paper. But for some reason, not only was it printed, I'm pretty sure they went for like double printings every single month. Like they dropped 2 issues, I think, every single month. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Marvel, bro. But either way, Joe Kelly had the unfortunate task of wrapping up that entire volume with, I think it was called the 7 or 10 or whatever deaths of Spider-Man, right? And he did this very supernatural Spider-Man take that really felt a little bit more like the Spider-Man people are used to. Not completely, because Spider-Man's been so bastardized for the entirety of like the 2010s, but people felt that it was going somewhere. But unfortunately, because of, I guess, the amounts of issues he was given, or whatever the case may be, people found it to be mediocre in the end. So I don't blame Joe Kelly for wanting to play it safe to kind of reel back in some people who might be new or slightly vaguely interested into Spider-Man, for them to kind of be hooked, right? Because what I've seen, Joe Kelly, through of course the art in the book and his writing, was really like, I don't want to say pandering, but it was supposed to be for the people that just really wanted to see Spider-Man back to the way he was, and not really for the veteran Spider-Man fan who's been at it for a while, right? Who's been reading his comics for a while, because those people won't really see much value of just bringing this character back into what he should have been, right? We've lost way too much time for that to be the only thing happening in your #1 issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Post-production Natrix here, just stopping by to say that 90% of you guys are not subscribed. Remember, if you enjoyed this video or any of my previous videos in the past, remember to subscribe. It really helps the channel out a ton. And question of the day, what do you think they should do with Spider-Man going forward? Do you think he's too long gone, so wrapped up into editorial interference and mess, that they should just leave Peter alone, maybe even kill him, so that he saves some of his dignity? Or do you think something big, something drastic should be done that could be seen as a way to save Peter, but maybe some people might not agree with it? I don't know. Maybe we should just focus on Ultimate Spider-Man going forward. I have no idea, but what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below, and yeah, that's all from me, and on with the video. Either way, does Spider-Man belong in the big three? Now, when I compare the works of Spider-Man like currently to what Batman and Superman are doing, it's not even in the same ballpark. I even see some people talking about Amazing Spider-Man #1 and saying that it's basically just Brand New Day, just remastered, or just like a remake of it. From what I've seen, some of the panels, it kind of, I don't know if this is how it starts off as, or if it's like, this is how it's like when you progress through the story, but it starts with Peter Parker at a job interview, and he's kind of saying why he's the best person for the job itself. And there's this little, well, I don't really want to say subtext because there's literally pictures pointing at what we should be connecting the dots to, but essentially him saying why he's the best person for the job kind of emulates and mirrors his life as Spider-Man, right? That's how they introduce you to the character of Peter, right? And when you look at what Batman and Superman are doing, they're going for that next chapter. I know a lot of people, when you look at a current day Batman, they say that he's been ruined ever since Tom King's run, right? Ever since the marriage between him and Catwoman kind of fell through. But I really, really disagree, especially in the DC All-In era, because even, of course, the Wednesday that Spider-Man came out, 3 Batman books came out, and all of them are not only on my pull list, which I really don't like doing because I would rather read in trades than like single issues, but I got those books and I read them, and all of them were peak. Absolute Batman, #7, 10 out of 10. Batman and Robin, #20, peak, not only just for the characterization of Bruce, right, and his kind of like mental state with him going through, I don't really want to like spoil it, but he's going through his own mental issues, but there's also huge development for Damian Wayne. I love seeing back and forth development for not only the father, but also the son, right? For Damian to still be getting good comics that goes into his psyche. That last issue was basically Batman exploring his son's psyche through the books that he makes, because Damian, he likes creating comic books, right? And Batman reads it and it just changes art style in between and stuff like that, and it gets fan favorite artists to come back in and draw Damian, and it's like so fascinating. I don't want to spoil, but it shows Damian's progression as a character and how him potentially losing a life on the field, right? He has this kind of, he's so young, but it's kind of like a midlife crisis or something, where he's like, I have been at this job, I've been working as Robin for like 4 or 5 years, and if I'm still not good enough, if people are still dying, is this really the right thing for me? Is this something I picture myself doing in like all of my life, the rest of my life? Or do I want to follow in the footsteps of not my father, but maybe in a grandfather? I'm not really going to tell you which one it is. It might seem kind of obvious, but like seeing Damian's like progression and the footsteps he decides to follow, is just so fascinating. And seeing Batman just mentally just break down, but trying to pull himself back together just for the sake of his son has just been something that you can't really say you've experienced in a Spider-Man comic, just because they're so willing to keep Spider-Man at this man-child level of, I don't know, mental status. I don't know what they want to do with him. They want to make him the high schooler that everybody kind of grew up with, I guess. But he's like 30 years old, right? When does this get old? You know what I mean? And I guess even on top of that, before I was talking about the spin-offs, right? Right now, we have a Two-Face spin-off that's really good, and a Poison Ivy. The Poison Ivy book has survived 3 line-wide initiative relaunches. It survived through Infinite Frontier. Well, Infinite Frontier is what spawned the Poison Ivy book, but it made its way through the Dawn of DC and now DC All In. It's still going 30 issues strong just because of how fascinating it depicts Poison Ivy as a character, right? Nightwing is doing really well. Batgirl, Cassandra Cain is great. It's honestly just being a Bat fan has never been better. Also, like with all like the Elseworld titles and the Black Label books, Batman has just been on a high, and that's not even mentioning like the previous Ram V Detective Comics run, the Dan Watters like Azrael and Arkham City books, like even like the main Batman title. That might be the title that struggled the most, right, with under like Chip Zdarsky's like work. But like right now, there's a sequel being printed for the Hush storyline from like 2003. We have like a sequel to Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee. They're coming back. But in September, what really gets me excited is that Matt Fraction is going to be the ongoing writer for Batman. And if you don't know who Matt Fraction is, you do not realize how much of a W this is, because Matt Fraction is the writer of, in my opinion, the last great Iron Man run. One of the best, if not the best, Hawkeye run that everyone like points to as being like definitive, and one of my favorite Iron Fist runs with the help of Ed Brubaker. So seeing Matt Fraction come onto the Batman title is not only great just for like his previous work and like his status in the comic book franchise and industry, but he actually got into comics through Batman in like the 70s. So you see that he's bringing back the blue suit, and he's gonna make Gotham more vibrant, less dreary and like dark, and to really bring back the fun that was missing in Batman stories. So I could not be more excited. And then going into like Superman, the Summer of Superman is like a new initiative dropping to kind of like coincide with the film. But in this initiative, there's gonna be a one-shot being published where where they kind of like reshake what the status quo of Superman will be. And there's so many different books going on at the same time. We have like the main Superman title by Joshua Williamson that's going through its Doomsday arc right now, which is great. Action Comics has been through its Superman All-Stars or Superstars initiative, which, if you don't know, it's basically like getting new writers every arc to kind of leave their stamp on the character. Writers that usually wouldn't be writing an ongoing for Superman get their chance to write the character, which has been, of course, very interesting and fun. But what's really cool is that to kind of coincide with this Summer of Superman event, Mark Waid is going to jump back onto Action Comics, and he's going to be the writer going forward to not only write Kal-El, but to write him in his Superboy form, when he's like a teenager seeing Superman develop his powers and understand his way and his place in the world when he's a child. That's something that we haven't seen modernized, at the very least, in comic books, right? This is something that's always been a part of the 1950s, 40s era of comics, and we haven't really gotten to experience that as modern readers. So not only is that cool, what else do we got? We have Dan Slott, right? Dan Slott is an interesting writer because he can drop peak or he can drop garbage, but I'm actually really excited for Dan Slott's new Superman Unlimited comic, mainly because it's going to take a more street level, grounded approach to Superman, but it's also going to expand and enhance on his villains alongside expanding the Daily Planet and that supporting cast. So he's going to be working with all of those things, which I really enjoy, especially coming off of the Superman Superstars initiative, where we saw some more grounded Superman stories. I would like to see the boots on the ground of like Metropolis being more explored, so that's great. And on top of that, there's more stuff. There's going to be a Supergirl ongoing. There's going to be a Crypto miniseries by Ryan North. One of my favorite writers at the Big Two is currently writing the fantastic, no pun intended, Fantastic Four run at Marvel right now. On top of that, there's Philip Kennedy Johnson. He's going to be continuing his Superman run in another book that's going to expand on more of the cosmic side of Superman. So I love how they're expanding and going through all these different parts of Superman. You want the street level Superman, it's here. You want the Superman that's going to progress the overall narrative of DC and might even connect to the absolute universe. You have the main Superman title. If you want to see Superman as a teenager going through the motions, you have Action Comics. If you want Cosmic Superman, you have the Kal-El spin-off series. You have Crypto, you have Supergirl, there's all of these things, and they're really, really going all in on not only Batman, but Superman for like, it's felt like almost a decade since they've done this, and it just paints DC in such a interesting light because they're actually putting all their money on the big two of the company, right? Usually they put all of their money on Batman, but now you're seeing an equal distribution of, I guess, favoritism for those characters. But yeah, Spider-Man recently, what has Spider-Man really gotten? He's gotten some Chip Zdarsky like spin-offs here and there. He's had some JMD Mateus miniseries, which I guess are cool. But like, the thing about Spider-Man is that as a character, unlike any other character, Spider-Man is interesting because in pseudo-modern times, I guess if you want to consider the 60s kind of modern, well, you kind of have to when you consider the comics for Batman and Superman came out in the 1930s, right, and 40s and during wartime. But for Spider-Man at the very least, we've seen his progression from a high schooler to a college student to a full-grown adult to married, right? We've seen all of that play out through essentially canon Marvel continuity. It's not like we've had like Batman and stuff like that, where it's like we have Golden, Silver, and Bronze Age versions of these characters. It's one singular Spider-Man going through all of these motions in canon, and we've gotten a lot of just retellings of his origin or of his past and stuff like that, to the point where, yes, all of these like prequel comics that come out, these miniseries from these established great writers, are cool and all, but the thing about Spider-Man is that we want to see the characters progress forward. And that just isn't really happening unless you want to read Ultimate Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man is the only frame of hope for Spider-Man at the moment, which just sucks because all Ultimate Spider-Man really is subtle retweaks of the mythos, but overall just showing us a world of what it should have been in the mainstream Marvel universe. He should have been married, he should have had his 2 kids, and he should have just been doing his cool storylines on some like Jeremy Adams Flash type of things. That's what should have been happening, but it's now relegated to a different universe, which is completely fine because the Ultimate Universe is peak. I don't have a problem with it, but it does get me kind of ticked that the things that we see in Ultimate Spider-Man should have literally been in the mainstream continuity. That's literally how Jonathan Hickman pitched the book in general. It's like what it should be. And like going back to like the prequel stuff that I was talking about, that's more like a Batman and Superman thing that they are able to play with. Not Spider-Man. Batman and Superman already have their kids. In Superman's case, he's already married, right? Batman, we want to see like Dick Grayson as Robin and stuff like that. That's why the Batman Year One thing that I forgot to mention. Batman Year One, there's a comic by Mark Waid coming out that's fantastic. Not enough people are reading it. Like go through Batman and Dick Grayson's first year as crime fighters, and it's intensely enjoyable, just because a lot of the times we don't get to see these things, right? A lot of it has been relegated to 1940s comics that nobody really wants to read because it's, to be frank, the writing is just not up to par, right? Especially when you look at modern writing standards, right? Superman as Superboy, that's something that we wouldn't have gotten to see because for the most part, people don't really want to go back to that era, even though I've heard that the Superboy era of DC back in the day is actually really good and creative. I don't doubt that, but most like audience members want to read something modern, which is why them going back makes sense. It doesn't really make sense for Peter, and it seems like for the most part Marvel editorial is stuck in the past, and that's why DC is currently winning in the big 3. Either way, guys, what do you think? Do you have any opinions of what you would do to somewhat fix Spider-Man? What is your opinions on the current state of Batman and Superman? Are you hopeful for not only them, but also for what Joe Kelly is going to be doing in the Spider-Man series going forward? Either way, guys, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live, and yeah, see you all later. Take care.